and welcome to episode 5 of Channel Anime, the anime review show. I'm John. This week, an anime about which I have very mixed feelings. I'm talking about Clannad. Now, I should mention right off the top that this week I'll be reviewing the original Clannad, not Clannad After Story. I'll be getting to that in a couple of weeks. Now, without further ado, and in a slight variation, based on a visual novel of the same name, Clannad follows high school senior Tomoyo Okazuki as he befriends several of his female classmates, helps them with their problems, and eventually falls in love with one of them. Like I said, it's based on a visual novel. Now, as usual, starting off with the characters, we have, of course, Tomoya. After losing Tomoya's mother in a car accident when he was very young, Tomoya's father became an abusive alcoholic. That is until 3 years before the beginning of the anime, when the two got into a physical altercation. This led to Tomoya's shoulder being injured, ending his burgeoning high school basketball career. And it also led to the two of them having a very distant relationship and Tomoyo becoming a delinquent. Of course, he never seems to do anything worse than cutting class. That is, until he meets Nagisa Furukawa. Left back a year due to frequent illness and left without any friends because they'd all graduated, Nagisa wants Tomoya to help her resurrect the school's drama club. There's also Fuko Ibuki. Now, I can't say much about Fuko because of spoilers, but she wants Tomoya's help to get all of the students in the school to attend her sister's wedding. Next up we have Kotomi Ichinose, the very socially awkward genius who wants Tomoya's help to make friends and move past a childhood trauma. Tomoyo Sakagami, a gifted martial artist, who wants Tomoya's help to become student council president, so that she can save some cherry blossom trees on the school grounds that she has an emotional attachment to. Kyu and Ryu Fujibayashi, a set of twin sisters who play a mostly supporting role throughout the series until it becomes a harem anime. Yuhei Sonohara, Tomoya's best friend and fellow delinquent, who also serves as the comic relief in the series due to him getting injured frequently. And finally, Akio and Tsunai Furukawa, Nagisa's parents who also serve as comic relief, as well as surrogate parents to several characters in the series. Now onto the art and animation. While most of it was very typical but passable moe, there were a few standout scenes. The first scene in the first episode, in which Tomoya and Nagisa initially meet, has a beautiful dreamlike quality. The girl alone in a world in which nothing can be born have a great realistic quality and are probably the best drawn scenes in the entire series. And Kotomi's breakdown in episode 12 has a really nice Miyazaki quality to it. Now on to the music, which is a lot like the art. It's passable, but really very forgettable. However, there is one exception, the closing theme, the Big Dango family song. It really grew on me during the course of the series, and ultimately I fell in love with the melody. And now on to the story, which leads to my mixed feelings. Many of the characters' story arcs could have lent themselves to a really great anthology series, especially Fuko and Kotomi. But unfortunately, I think they stuck way too close to the source material, and it just ended up being very silly and at times very sexist, especially in the beginning. Of course, I realize that criticizing a harem anime for being sexist is a lot like criticizing a heavy metal band for being loud. It's a feature, not a bug. But it really bothered me in this case, particularly due to the missed potential. Now for the positive side, I really liked both scenes in which Tomoya and Nagisa met. They were very touching. And the whole girl alone in a world subplot was really interesting. Even though, and probably because, it makes no sense until near the end of the series. And from what I understand, it's fully explained in After Story. Tomoyo's fight scenes were also very well done, and a great change of pace, as were all the tonal changes. And I really liked that, with the exception of the end of each character's story arc, each episode ended in a cliffhanger. Now, I wasn't too sure about Fuko's story at first, but as it went on, I liked that it kept me guessing, and I'll admit that I may have cried at the end. Although it would have been nice to have it fully resolved. And I loved that they brought her back in a very funny way after her story was wrapped up. Kotomi's traumatic childhood was a very interesting and unexpected development, and I really liked how it showed where her drive to learn came from. And I did get a bit emotional when she opened the suitcase and found the bear. Tomoyo's backstory was very touching, as was Nagisa's father's pep talk to her when she was crying on stage. And I really liked that Tomoya was shown to be fallible toward the end of the series. Now I bring that last point up because, onto the negatives, Tomoya is probably the least likable protagonist I have seen in any anime. For most of the series, he's nothing but a condescending, arrogant jerk. And of course, because it's based on a visual novel, he's portrayed as this messiah-like character who solves the problems of all the female characters, even when not asked in Kotomi's case. He also only seems to help girls who he wants something from. And that, of course, leads to my primary issue. The entire first half of the series is incredibly sexist. Just about all of the female characters are little more than stereotypes. Be it helpless or hysterical or violent or timid, none of them have any real personalities. And many of them are infantilized, especially Nagisa, Kotomi, and Fuko. Now, admittedly, it's not just the female characters that Tomoya is portrayed as being superior to. He's also shown as being superior to Tsunohara and Akio, but he doesn't have to correct them or solve their problems. Now, fortunately, the sexist perspective of the show does start to change about halfway through, ironically when it becomes a harem anime. Hyo, who had always been portrayed as equal to Tomoya, starts to get a bit more development and a lot more screen time. And it was very interesting to see Tomoya start getting objectified for a change. Oh, and one more thing that really bugged me. During Tomoya's backstory, the idea is put forth that a suicide attempt helped bring her family together. In my opinion, that was incredibly irresponsible and dangerous. Now, ultimately, if the series had focused less on Tomoya and didn't have such an egregiously sexist beginning, I think I would have really liked it. A lot of the storylines are really interesting and touching, and the series has a great deal of emotional punch. Of course, it's possible that the series becoming less sexist as it goes along was intended to show Tomoya's development, and if that's the case, I really appreciate it. But the very sexist first impression that I got just soured my opinion of it right off the bat. And it really all just seems like one big missed opportunity to make something really special. Alright, that's it for Clannad. Until next week when I'll be taking it a little easy and reviewing Miss Monochrome. Each episode is only 3 minutes long. Take a look down in the description where you'll find a link to find Clannad on Hulu, links to find the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+, and of course a link to Zombie Takeout, the Being Cult movie review podcast that I co-host and produce. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. The first scene in the first episode in which Tomoya and Nagasaki... Wow.